really know the people around you? Friends, colleagues, even loved ones. We all wear masks. We say the right words, play the right roles, and hide what we don't want others to see. But Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, revealed a powerful truth. If you want to see someone's true character, you don't need years. You only need to pay attention to two things. What are those two things? Stay with me, because the answers might change the way you see people forever. Music pauses. Video title appears on screen. Carl Jung on revealing true character. Focus on just two things. Have you ever wondered? How can you truly know who someone is? We live in a world where people carefully polish their image. Social media, workplaces, even in friendships. Everyone wears a mask. People say the right things, act the right way, and present themselves as kind, strong, and trustworthy. But behind the mask, who are they really? This question has haunted philosophers, psychologists, and ordinary people for centuries. Because knowing someone's true character isn't just curiosity, it's survival. Choosing friends, trusting a business partner, falling in love, or following a leader, all depend on one thing: understanding their real self. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century, gave us deep insights into human behavior, the unconscious mind, and what hides behind the mask we show to the world. And while Jung never gave us a simple two-step checklist, his psychology reveals a powerful truth. You don't need years to uncover someone's real character. You just need to watch carefully in two specific situations. First, how they treat people who can do nothing for them. And second, how they behave when they are given power. These two moments cut through the masks, through the polite performances, and expose the reality beneath. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into Jung's psychology, explore these two tests of character, understand why they matter, and learn how to use them in our own lives, not only to see others more clearly, but also to reflect on ourselves. So stay with me, because by the end, you'll have a sharper lens to read people, and maybe to see your own hidden self more honestly than ever before. Let's begin with Carl Jung's framework, his ideas about the persona and the shadow, because understanding these two concepts is the key to unlocking true character. Carl Jung's framework of personality. Carl Jung wasn't just a psychologist. He was a pioneer, a man who looked deep into myths, symbols, and the unconscious mind to understand why people behave the way they do. To Jung, the human personality is not a simple surface. It is layered, complex, often contradictory. One of Jung's most famous ideas is the concept of the persona. The word persona comes from the Latin term for mask. In ancient theater, actors wore masks to portray different characters. Jung used this metaphor to describe the mask we wear in daily life. Your persona is the social role you play. Polite, professional, respectable. It's the version of yourself you show at work, with family, or in public. The persona helps you fit in, but it is not the whole truth of who you are. Behind the mask lies something Jung called the shadow. The shadow is made up of all the traits, desires, and impulses we reject or hide. Maybe you want to appear kind, so you push away your anger. Maybe you want to appear confident, so you hide your fears. Over time, these hidden parts don't disappear. They just sink into the unconscious. Jung believed that unless we face our shadow, it leaks out in ways we can't control. A person who hides their aggression might become passive-aggressive. Someone who denies their selfishness may secretly manipulate others. This is why Jung famously said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." Because words belong to the persona. Actions, especially unguarded actions, reveal the shadow. So, how do we pierce through the mask? Jung would say, don't look at people when they're carefully performing. Look at them in moments when the performance slips. This brings us to the two great tests of character: how people treat those with no power, and how they behave when they themselves hold power. Before we dive into those, let's pause and reflect on something. Have you ever noticed how easy it is for someone to seem nice in normal situations? They smile at friends, they shake hands politely, they post kind words online. But then, a waiter makes a mistake with their order, or they're given authority over a team. Suddenly, the mask starts to crack. This is exactly what Jung's psychology helps us see. True character is not built on words, but revealed in moments of truth. Now let's explore the first test of character: how a person treats those who cannot benefit them. The first test of character: how we treat those who can't benefit us. Imagine you're sitting in a restaurant. The food is late, the waiter seems stressed, and suddenly, the person across from you snaps. Their voice hardens, their tone becomes sharp, and they treat the waiter as if he's beneath them. Now imagine another person, same restaurant, same delay. But instead of anger, they smile gently, reassure the waiter, maybe even crack a joke to lighten the mood. Two people, two very different reactions. Which one would you trust more? Carl Jung would say, moments like these reveal something deeper than politeness. They show us the shadow behind the mask. Why this test matters: anyone can treat their boss with respect. Anyone can be kind to a friend who just gave them a gift. But what about the janitor cleaning the floor, the cashier at the grocery store, the security guard standing at the door? These people often hold no power over us, no influence on our success, no ability to reward us, and that's why these moments are gold. Because when there's no benefit in being kind, kindness becomes real. Jung emphasized that much of human behavior is transactional. We do things to get approval, status, or advantage. But our unconscious self leaks out when there's nothing to gain. In those raw, unguarded interactions, the mask slips. It's not about manners. It's about humanity. A story of two leaders. Let me give you an example. There was once a CEO of a big corporation. In board meetings, he was charming, charismatic, and polite to investors. But staff in the cafeteria dreaded his presence. He barked orders, belittled workers, and treated them like they were invisible. Now compare him to another leader, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi, despite leading millions, was often seen cleaning his own living quarters, helping with chores, and treating ordinary villagers with respect and equality. To him, no one was beneath him. Which leader do you think had more authentic character? This is the first great test. True character shows not in how we treat those who can reward us, but those who seemingly cannot. Jung's lens on empathy and projection. So why does this matter psychologically? Jung would point to two ideas: projection and empathy. Projection. Often when people are cruel to those with less power, it's because they're projecting their own insecurities. A person who feels powerless in their own life might lash out at a waiter just to feel in control. They are projecting their shadow, their repressed weakness, onto others. Empathy. On the other hand, when someone treats others with dignity, regardless of status, it shows they've integrated parts of their shadow. They don't need to assert dominance because they're secure in themselves. In simple terms, how we treat the powerless reveals how comfortable we are with our own powerlessness. The psychology of small moments. Jung believed the unconscious is revealed not in grand speeches, but in small slips of behavior. Think about it. A person can rehearse a presentation for weeks, but they don't rehearse how they treat a cashier. That moment is raw. That's where character peeks through. So if you really want to know someone, watch them in these small, ordinary encounters. Do they greet the bus driver? Do they thank the cleaner? Do they look at people or look through them as if they're invisible? Self-reflection. The mirror. Test now. Here's the harder part. This test isn't just for judging others, it's for judging ourselves. Ask yourself, how do you treat those who have no power over you? Do you slip into impatience, sarcasm, or indifference? Or do you show the same respect you'd want for yourself? Jung believed in something called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating the shadow. That means we must face uncomfortable truths about our own behavior. Maybe you realize you do get annoyed at waiters. Maybe you realize you ignore cleaners. That realization isn't meant for guilt. It's meant for growth. Because once you see the shadow, you can integrate it. You can choose differently next time. Modern applications in today's world, this test is more important than ever. Think about how people act online. Behind the safety of a screen, many show their true colors, often rude, cruel, dismissive. No one is watching, no benefit exists, and suddenly the shadow explodes. Or in workplaces, notice how managers treat interns or assistants. Do they empower them or humiliate them? These everyday moments are character X-rays. If you pay attention, you'll see more truth in a 2-minute interaction with a stranger than in 100 polished Instagram posts. A closing thought for part, so here's the takeaway. If you want to see someone's true character, watch how they treat the powerless. If you want to build your own character, practice respect and kindness where there is no reward. Jung would remind us that true growth comes not from pretending to be perfect, but from facing the shadow honestly. And one of the simplest, most profound ways to do that is to treat every human being with dignity, not because of what they can give us, but because of who we become in the process. Now that we've seen the first test, let's move to the second. If the powerless reveal one side of our shadow, then power reveals another. And nothing exposes character faster than the intoxicating taste of control. The second test of character: how we behave when given power. There's an old saying, nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. Carl Jung might not have written that exact line, but the principle echoes through his psychology. Because nothing reveals the hidden self, the shadow, faster than power. Why power changes people? Think about it. Most of us live with limits, social rules, authority figures, laws, financial restrictions. They all hold our impulses in check. But give someone power, authority over others, wealth, fame, or influence, and suddenly those limits weaken. When people feel untouchable, their masks begin to slip. They don't need to pretend anymore. And what comes out, kindness or cruelty, humility or arrogance, is their real self. Power is like a spotlight on the psyche. It magnifies what is already inside. A compassionate person with power becomes more compassionate. A selfish person with power becomes more selfish. As Jung would say, power doesn't corrupt absolutely. It exposes absolutely. The ego and inflation. Jung often warned about something he called ego inflation. The ego, in Jung's model, is the conscious sense of self, the I that we identify with. Normally, the ego is balanced by the unconscious, by humility, by recognizing that we are only a small part of a vast psyche. But when power enters, the ego can inflate, like a balloon filled with hot air. Suddenly, a person believes they are larger than life, above others, even godlike. This inflation is dangerous because it disconnects the person from reality. They no longer see themselves as human among humans. They see themselves as superior, chosen, destined. And that's when the shadow, the repressed desires, the arrogance, the cruelty, bursts forth. Jung compared this to ancient myths of hubris, where mortals who tried to play gods always met a tragic downfall. Stories from history gives us endless examples. Take a humble revolutionary leader promising justice and equality. The moment they seize absolute power, they begin oppressing the very people they claim to protect. The mask of compassion was only a persona. Beneath it lay ambition and greed. On the other hand, there are leaders like Nelson Mandela. After 27 years in prison, he emerged not with vengeance, but with forgiveness. As president, he chose reconciliation over revenge, unity over division. His power amplified his integrity. 2 different men, 2 different shadows. Power didn't create them, it revealed them. Small-scale power. But this isn't just about presidents or kings. Power shows up in everyday life too. A boss managing employees, a teacher controlling a classroom, a parent guiding a child, even a moderator in an online group. Watch carefully. Does the boss empower their team, or do they humiliate them? Does the teacher inspire students, or belittle them? Does the parent use authority to nurture or to dominate? Each small role of power is a test of character. Jung would say, the way someone handles power over even one person reveals volumes about their psyche. The archetype of the ruler in Jungian psychology. There are universal patterns of behavior called archetypes. One of them is the ruler, the king, the queen, the leader. The healthy ruler archetype protects, guides, and creates order. But the unhealthy ruler becomes a tyrant, using power for control and self-glory. When someone gains power, they step into this archetype. Which version they embody depends on how well they've integrated their shadow. If they've faced their insecurities, they rule with wisdom. If they've denied their shadow, the shadow rules them, and tyranny follows. A psychological experiment. You may have heard of the Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, psychologist Philip Zimbardo created a mock prison, with volunteers randomly assigned as guards or prisoners. Within days, the guards, ordinary college students, began abusing the prisoners. They humiliated them, enforced cruel punishments, and quickly lost their sense of morality. The experiment had to be shut down early because it spiraled out of control. What happened? Power happened. The moment people felt they had unchecked authority, their shadow emerged. Jung would not have been surprised. For him, the unconscious always waits beneath the surface, and power is one of the fastest keys to unlocking it. Self-reflection. What would you do with power? It's easy to judge others, but Jung's challenge is always personal. What about you? Ask yourself honestly. If you had unlimited power, how would you act? If you could say anything without consequence, what would you say? If you could control others without limit, what would you do? The answers might scare you. But Jung would remind us, those scary answers are the shadow, and facing them is the path to maturity. Instead of denying those impulses, we must recognize them, integrate them, and choose differently. Only then can we hold power without being consumed by it. Practical wisdom for today. In our world today, power isn't always political. It can be social, the power of followers on social media. It can be economic, the power of wealth. It can even be emotional, the power to hurt someone who loves you. Every day, you and I are tested with small doses of power. Do we use our words online to uplift or to tear down? Do we use our money to help or to flaunt? Do we use our relationships to nurture or to manipulate? These choices shape our character. And here's the key. Power doesn't create a person's true self. It reveals it. So if you want to know who someone really is, watch what happens when they are in control. Do they grow humble and generous, or arrogant and cruel? That answer is worth more than any speech they could give. Carl Jung showed us that the psyche is layered, mysterious, and full of hidden forces. But he also showed us that truth reveals itself in action. The powerless reveal our empathy. Power reveals our integrity. Both moments are mirrors reflecting the shadow behind the mask, and if we dare to look closely, not just at others, but at ourselves, we gain the chance to grow into wholeness. Now that we've seen both tests, let's move to something practical. How can we use these insights in our daily lives, both to read others and to build our own authentic character? Applying Jung's insight in daily life so far, we've explored the two powerful tests of character. First, how a person treats those who cannot help them. Second, how they behave when they themselves hold power. But let's ask the most important question. What do we do with this knowledge? Jung's psychology wasn't meant to sit in books. It was meant to change how we live, how we see ourselves, and how we grow. Observing others with a Jungian lens in your daily life, you can begin to watch people more carefully, not in their polished moments, but in their unguarded ones. At a cafe, notice how your friend treats the barista. At work, notice how your manager talks to the intern. Online, notice how someone responds when they disagree with a stranger. These small observations reveal character more than any words could. You don't need to confront them. You don't need to judge harshly. Just observe and store that knowledge. Jung believed awareness itself is powerful. When you see truth clearly, you're less likely to be deceived by appearances. Reflecting on yourself, but the harder work is always inward. The real question isn't just who are they, but who am I? Ask yourself, How do I treat those who cannot benefit me? How do I behave when I hold power, even in small amounts? Be brutally honest. You may not always like the answers. But Jung taught that true growth begins with facing the shadow. Here's a simple exercise. At the end of the day, reflect on one interaction with someone who had less power than you. A server, a child, an assistant. Did you treat them with dignity? If not, why? What insecurity or impatience was triggered? Then reflect on one situation where you had influence. Maybe you were asked for advice, or you led a meeting. Did you use that influence to lift others or to assert yourself? This kind of daily reflection slowly integrates the shadow. You don't eliminate it. You bring it into awareness, so it doesn't control you from the dark. Practicing conscious kindness. The true test of character is what you do when there's no reward. So make kindness a conscious habit, especially when no one is watching. Hold the door for the cleaner. Thank the cashier. Smile at the security guard. These aren't small gestures. They're daily declarations of who you are becoming. As Jung might put it, every act of kindness toward another is also an act of integration within yourself. Handling power responsibly. If you hold a position of power, as a parent, teacher, leader, or even just an older sibling, remember, your shadow will be tested. Jung warned that unchecked power inflates the ego. So balance yourself with humility. Surround yourself with honest voices who can call you out. Practice empathy. Remind yourself daily, power is a responsibility, not a privilege. The best leaders in history were those who saw power not as ownership, but as service. Jung would say they embodied the healthy ruler archetype. Choosing relationships. Wisely, finally, this knowledge helps you choose who to trust. If you want to know whether to invest in a friend, partner, or leader, don't just listen to their words. Test them in small ways. See how they treat a stranger. Watch them in moments of frustration. Notice them when they get a little power. Those glimpses may tell you more than years of conversation. Jung's timeless lesson narrator. Carl Jung spent his life exploring the hidden depths of the human psyche. He taught us that we are more than the masks we wear, more than the personas we project to the world. Beneath every smile, every handshake, every polished performance, lies a shadow waiting to be seen. But Jung also gave us hope. By facing the shadow, by bringing it into the light, we can grow into whole, authentic beings, and the path to seeing this truth, in others and in ourselves, can begin with just two simple questions. How do we treat those who cannot benefit us? How do we behave when given power? These two tests cut through illusions. They reveal empathy or cruelty, humility or arrogance, authenticity or pretense. So the next time you wonder about someone's character, don't listen to their speeches. Watch their small actions, watch their power, and more importantly, watch your own. Because at the end of the day, true character is not measured by what we say, but by what we do when no one is watching, and by what we do when everyone is watching, as Jung might remind us. Wholeness comes not from perfection, but from honesty, from daring to see ourselves clearly, shadow and all. So ask yourself, when no one is watching, who are you? And when you hold power, what kind of person do you become? The answers to those two questions may just reveal your truest self.